Welcome to The Explainer. So let me ask you something. What if your mind isn't just a thinking machine? What if it's more like a vibrational receiver, one that's constantly tuning in to reality itself? It's a pretty profound idea, right? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into a framework that explores just that. It's called the principle of balanced modulation, and this whole explainer was requested by Sachin Karnik. Together, we're going to unpack how we might be structuring our entire world moment by moment. Okay, this sentence right here, this is the key to everything we're about to talk about. It's saying that our thinking, our very perception of the world, it isn't just a process, it's a frequency, a specific tuning. And just like an old radio, that tuning can be crystal clear or it can be full of static, noise, and distortion. So to really get a handle on this, we're going to use a powerful analogy that's at the heart of this whole principle. I want you to imagine your mind as a really sophisticated radio receiver. Now, here's the crucial part. It's not generating the broadcast. It's tuning into it. Its job is to take this vast, raw energy of consciousness and translate it into the specific songs and conversations that we call our thoughts, our feelings, our entire experience. And it's pretty wild how perfectly the components line up. The radio box itself, that's our cognitive faculty, our mind. The radio frequencies flying through the air, those are what the source calls informational frequencies, basically the vibrations of meaning all around us. And that final step, the decoding that turns static into a clear song, well, that is modulation, and that's the core mechanism we're going to be exploring today. All right, so here's our roadmap for this journey. First, we're going to dig way deeper into this whole idea of cognition as a frequency. Then we'll look at the ideal state, what's called balanced modulation, and of course, what happens when we lose that balance. From there, we'll get practical and connect it to our own bodies with a heart-brain coherence engine, see how we can restore harmony. And finally, we'll touch on something called gnosis, the highest expression of a fully coherent mind. Okay, let's dive right in, starting with the bedrock of this entire principle. What does it really mean when we say that our cognition, our thinking, is an interpretive frequency? Well, what it means is that cognition isn't something your mind does. It's a vibrational quality that your mind is. It's the very mechanism that translates the raw data of life into organized thought. It literally acts like a resonant field, attracting and amplifying certain patterns of information. And here's the kicker. This frequency is what shapes how raw energy becomes what you see, what you feel, what you experience as reality. So if our cognition is a frequency, what does it sound like when it's working at its absolute best? Well, this brings us to the ideal state, what the principle calls balanced modulation. This is when the radio receiver is perfectly tuned, the signal is coming in crystal clear, and our understanding is just sharp and totally lucid. In this ideal state, your mind is like a flawless, clear prism. Think about it. The prism doesn't create the light, right? It just takes the pure white light of consciousness and perfectly refracts it into this beautiful, full spectrum of understanding. Our thoughts, our insights, our creativity, and it does all this without adding any fogginess, cracks, or distortion. That is cognitive coherence. So how does this prism stay so perfectly clear? Well, it comes down to two key processes happening at the exact same time. First, you've got resonance. That's our ability to lock onto frequencies that match who we are, our beliefs, our memories, our emotions. It's how we recognize things. But you also need the second pillar, differentiation. That's our ability to tell one pattern from another, to bring clarity and order to our experience. See, you absolutely need both, resonance to connect and differentiation to clarify. And when those two pillars are strong and working together, our whole cognitive system is naturally protected. It wards off all that mental static, the confusion, the turbulence that clouds our judgment. And maybe most importantly, it keeps us from getting trapped in what you might call interpretive entrapment, those really rigid, narrow ways of seeing the world and ourselves. But, of course, that's the ideal. What happens when the balance is lost? What happens when that clear prism gets cracked or foggy? Well, the system tends to break down in two very distinct, almost opposite ways, and both of them lead to a state of inner conflict and what's called dissonance. So this breakdown usually shows up in one of two ways. On one hand, you have rigidity, where the mind gets stuck, locked in a defensive loop. And on the other hand, you have fragmentation, where the mind just becomes scattered and disconnected. You can think of it as being either wound way too tight or completely unwound. Let's drill down into that first one, rigidity. Energetically, its signature is low-frequency entrenchment. It's basically a state of mental stagnation, like getting stuck in an energetic rut. The mind gets locked into a really dense pattern and it just can't tune into anything new. And we see this play out psychologically as dogmatism, stubbornness, or that classic confirmation bias where you only see evidence for what you already believe. Now, fragmentation is the polar opposite. It's pure energetic chaos. The signature here is frequency incoherence. Your mind is literally trying to vibrate in conflicting directions all at once, creating a ton of internal static. And we've all felt this, right? It's that feeling of being disconnected, confused, or when your thoughts are just looping and going absolutely nowhere. So just to sum it up real quick, rigidity is getting energetically stuck, which shows up as being inflexible. Fragmentation is being energetically scattered, which shows up as confusion and dissociation. One is like a solid block of ice, the other is like steam going in every direction. Now, here's what's so fascinating. Even though they seem like complete opposites, both of these paths, they lead to the exact same outcome, a state of internal conflict called energetic dissonance. This is when the core frequencies of your entire being, your thoughts, your emotions, your body's own energy, are just not in harmony. They're literally out of tune with each other, creating that internal feeling of static and unease. And this is where it gets really incredible, because this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. This state of being in tune or out of tune, coherence or dissonance, is deeply, measurably connected to our physical bodies, specifically through the powerful relationship between our heart and our brain. It all comes down to something called the heart-brain axis. Now get this. Your heart generates the single most powerful and rhythmic electromagnetic field in your entire body. It's literally thousands of times stronger than the brain's field. And this field is constantly sending signals up to the brain, influencing its electrical activity, its chemistry, and our overall ability to think clearly. And when this heart-brain axis is synchronized, we enter a measurable state of what's called physiological coherence. You can actually see it in the data. Your heart rate variability becomes smooth and rhythmic. Your brainwaves shift into these calm, focused alpha and theta states, and your nervous system finds this beautiful balance between fight or flight and rest and digest. So what's the control knob for all of this? How do we get the heart and brain in sync? Well, it's our emotions. It turns out that emotions like compassion, gratitude, and care create a rhythmic, harmonious signal between the heart and brain. That leads to coherence. But emotions like anxiety, frustration, and anger, they create an irregular, chaotic signal, leading straight to dissonance. And this is so key. Emotional coherence is the absolute foundation for cognitive clarity. Now, this is seriously good news. It's incredibly empowering because it means we have a direct, physical pathway to influence our mental state. We aren't just victims of our scattered thoughts. So, if we find ourselves stuck in that static of dissonance, how do we actually restore that energetic harmony? The whole process is about restoring balance through what are called entrainment practices. And the goal is really simple. It's called phase realignment. It's about getting the band back together. We use specific techniques to get the rhythms of the heart and the brain to synchronize, to get back in tune. And when they do, those interference patterns, that feeling of mental noise and confusion, they just start to dissolve. So, what's in this toolkit for coherence? Well, there are a bunch of proven methods. Things like resonance breathing, where you use the slow, steady rhythm of your breath to get everything in sync. There's heart-centered meditation, where you focus your emotional energy on the heart to create a powerful, coherent signal. You can even use things like sound entrainment, like chanting or binaural beats, to guide your internal vibrations back into harmony. And with modern biofeedback tools, you can literally watch your own internal rhythms in real time and learn how to regulate them yourself. All of these techniques work by creating this beautiful rhythmic harmony across all our internal systems, and the outcome is profound. We're talking about a stable and focused mind, consistent and balanced emotions, and a body that returns to its natural state of balance. But what does it feel like? It feels like inner peace. It feels like clarity. And for a lot of people, it feels like their intuition just got turned way, way up. All right, so we've talked about getting back to balance, but what happens if we could live there? What happens when this state of coherence isn't just something we visit for a few minutes, but it actually becomes our new baseline? Well, that's when something truly extraordinary can happen. When our internal frequencies harmonize perfectly and consistently, our cognition can transform into a state known as gnosis. Now, this isn't just thinking about something. This is a state of direct, holistic knowing. It's that aha moment of deep insight, an understanding that goes way beyond words. But what's cool is you can still use rational thought as a precision tool whenever you need it. In this state of gnosis, the mind is no longer a distorting filter. It becomes this luminous bridge to a deeper understanding. Consciousness starts to perceive life not as a bunch of random separate events, but as an unbroken flow of meaning. And the person no longer feels like a fragmented collection of thoughts and emotions, but instead experiences a single unified vibration of just being aware. And all of this brings us to one final, really provocative thought to leave you with. If we accept this framework that your mind is an instrument and your cognition is the music it plays, then you are the conductor. You can let it play a symphony of dissonance, full of the chaotic noise of fragmentation and the dull, repetitive drone of rigidity. Or you can consciously choose to tune your instrument, to bring it into coherence, and to play a symphony of clarity, harmony, and profound understanding. The choice is yours. And that, right there, is the core of the principle of balanced modulation, a truly powerful way of looking at how we tune the intricate symphony playing between our mind, our heart, and our consciousness. For more information on the research we've talked about today, please feel free to contact Sachin Karnik. All the details you need are right there in the description box. Thanks for joining me.